Okay, so I'll throw about 5 more skeletons, and bada bing, bada boom, that's a nice little encounter all wrapped up. That should take most of the session, with a little bit of leeway time for them to screw around, but all in all, there shouldn't be a problem.
Wouldn't they be able to get through all these fights real quick?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you gave the fighter that new sword that just kills everything in one round, so these fights would be over pretty quickly.
Why the hell would I give them a sword?
Well, the fighter really wanted the sword, because it was from a book he really liked.
That was a good book. But fine, okay, whatever. His sword's broken. It can't kill ghosts. Aha! So I'll just throw a bunch of ghosts at them and it'll be fine. But now I'm seeing the look on your faces and slowly realizing that there must be more.
Well, you gave the cleric a means to trap souls, and seeing as ghosts are just souls...
In your defense, boss, the ability fit the character's background, even if they blow past the first couple of bosses right away.
Why did I even give them those things?
Well, the lantern was because you forgot his birthday present.
One of the toughest things for any DM to learn is when to say no. Most DMs fall into two extremes. They either say no to anything that isn't the base rules out of some sort of fear that the system might fall apart if they sneeze too hard, or they can't find it in their hearts to deny the player something, so they give them anything they might want, like some sad old lady trying to get love from her dumb cat. Needless to say, these are both bad outlooks when it comes to this hobby, but the difficult part is to find the middle ground. When a player comes up to you and asks if they can do something that isn't specified or even against the rules, your first response shouldn't be no. It should be why. Why is the important thing to establish in this case? Why does the player want to have a demon lord as a dad? Why does your player want multiple personality syndrome and a magic item that changes their appearance when they change personalities? Why does the player want to just be a robot? If you could suss out the why, you can not only see what your player really wants, but also see if you can't make it work in the narrative structure of your game.
So let's say that I want to have a connection to the fire plane to explain my fire powers. And the reason behind it is because I think it would be cool to have an outsider be practically in control of my actions. And maybe later in the campaign we can meet them and...
If you find out the reason behind the player's request, most of the time you'll find it's rather harmless fluff that just makes the character cooler in their heads. And now you get to find an ultra-personal hook for them in-game. Then there are the other times. The times when the player learned about Synax and think it'll be neat to use. Or when the player figures out that a summoner gives you twice the action economy in any combat, and this game is just action economy. Basically, the times when the player finds out that with some tweaking, they can get a huge mechanical advantage in the game. These are your power gamers, your min-maxers, your players who only play the game to make their numbers the biggest and the enemy's numbers the smallest. If the player just wants to use a new magic system they found online because they think it can optimize their spell power, then feel free to step in and say that you have the game balanced towards how spells work now, and it'll be too difficult to learn a new system. If they want to add a bunch of new feat from a book that just came out only because it makes their Polon build much more efficient, then you can...
So what about the combat-heavy games, or short one-off games where the story isn't that important?
I don't understand. Who wants to play on combat-heavy...
I guess in those cases it's more viable than just story hooks. And the type of games where players are expressing combat characters, that should be allowed to tweak the rules a bit, to allow for a specific kind of build.
Hey, I was in the middle of describing how...
So in those types of games, you should just say no to overpowered options. Things that give too much of an advantage with too little effort.
But how will you know what's overpowered if you've never seen it in action before?
Yeah, it all comes down to knowing the system. Also, you never know if you don't experiment. So... maybe the DM can allow something on the basis that they can water it down later if they find it too oppressive.
I guess that could work. Sort of a trial period for new things. If the playgroup likes it, and that means they have new stuff they can do for later games.
You both know that I have the power to kill you, right? Like it's not even that hard. I can just do it.
Sorry.
Okay, cool, gotcha. No, that's fair, that's fair.
Bye.
Anyhow. The takeaway here is that when you're building a game and then throwing your players into it, you are building a game with your players. And while you get to look behind the curtain and see all the moving parts, your players should have some input on the world as well. After all, they're the ones who are going to be playing in it. Just be careful to make sure that the things they add make sense for the kind of game you are playing.